Obesity in the United States is higher than it's ever been in our nation's history. This is due to many factors which together have created somewhat of an epidemic. The Journal of the American Medical Association in 1999 found that 320,000 people died last year alone. Or in 1999, 320,000 people died, which was attributed to obesity. And it was proposed that by 2009, that number would jump up by 30,000 people. Most of the incidents of obesity are attributed to poor eating habits and lack of physical activity. Habits which lead to obesity in adulthood are learned during the early years of childhood and adolescence. I propose that the factor which most influences poor development of dietary habits in adulthood is the overexposure of young Americans to visual media, such as computers, video games, and television. The American Academy of Pediatricians recommends that children only view no more than 2 hours of TV per day, and 57% of high school students view more than 2 hours per day. And my main points are that visual media discourages the understanding of a healthy lifestyle, that visual media substitutes for physical activity, and that visual media contributes to bad dieting habits. And how can we as a society expect our citizens to understand how to live healthy when we're constantly discouraging them to do so by advertisements disguising deadly hamburgers as nutritious, which from my own experience never seem to look like they do in the commercials. And these companies put on a smile as they hand over a bag dripping with more grease than a 1980s Jerry curl. Customers might as well be asking for packets of melted fat to dip their fries in instead of ketchup. And it all begins in childhood. Sitting in front of the TV, a plasma screen if you're lucky, playing the latest release of Halo 2009. The Kaiser Foundation reported that kids spend 8 hours and 33 minutes per day exposed to media, including video games and computers. That means that more than 50% of the time not spent sleeping is spent experiencing some form of digital media. The Kaiser Foundation also found that 80% of these teens that reported viewing so much TV were not having any restrictions put on them by their parents for how much TV or what they could actually watch. With so much attention paid to TV or video games, a good conversation or quality family interaction is not likely. Visual media discourages healthy living and social interactions. Cordes and Miller, the authors of Fool's Gold, argue that computers lead to isolation, less self-motivation, and detachment from community. Precious hours that could be spent doing something to improve health and well-being are wasted away watching the same rerun of Rugrats or All Real Monsters that aired last week. Most of us are guilty of watching these marathons instead of playing football in the yard, and there's a heavy price to pay. And 320,000 people will pay that price this year alone. The underemphasis of healthy eating by advertising companies leads to deficient diets in kids. Most anyone who watches a child-oriented TV channel can see quite clearly to whom the commercials are directed. The Center for Science and Public Interest estimated that fast foods and snack companies spend $10 to $12 billion per year marketing to kids and teens, and they're projected to spend a net of more than $900 billion next year. $300 billion more than taxpayers will have to pay for the mistakes of Wall Street executives who were saved by the $700 billion bailout bill just passed recently. This is the food company's own personal contribution to an obese America. Richard Lowry, MD, Division of Adolescent and School Health, affirms that the exposure to food advertisements may produce incorrect nutritional beliefs among children. When children see an advertisement on their favorite channel with an idealized cartoon tiger saying, "They're great," they believe it, and proceeding to beg their parents for the product. This would not be a problem if there were commercials for broccoli, but as Lowry also agreed that television advertising and programming tend to emphasize high-calorie foods and poor nutritional quality, rather than nutritionally rich foods. Visual media have often become a substitute for physical activity. Children prefer visual media over physical activity. Sierra Vicagolpa, professor of curriculum and instruction at the University of Minnesota, stated that I was surprised at how motivated the children were to play the games. They often willingly did things they didn't necessarily want to do in order to enhance the game time. For example, the children could earn extra minutes for video game play by finishing all of their food at lunchtime. Even a child I knew to be a picky eater was willing to eat disliked foods in order to earn those extra video game minutes. Kids become obsessed with these games, largely due to the fact that 80% of them report having no rules except for watching TV. A team of researchers at the University of Oregon put out a poll of 6th and 9th graders, which said that 77% enjoyed watching music videos, while only 41% said that they enjoyed participating in physical activities. There is a direct relationship between visual media exposure and obesity. Richard Lowry said that reducing the amount of time spent watching TV creates opportunities for activity. It says that television, as well as other forms of media, contribute to inactivity among American children. Visual media contributes to bad dieting habits. Teens are exposed to an unrestricted amount of visual media. The problem is that parents often don't see a problem with excessive television use. And the thinking follows that if they're watching TV, then they're not getting in trouble. Whatever examples set by the media are the ones learned. Children are constantly being told what to do and how to do it, and their lives are always being run by someone or something other than themselves. They lack judgment, and this is why the advertising companies target them specifically. Increased TV viewing among children and adolescents has been associated with potentially unhealthy dietary practices, such as increased consumption of high-fat foods, as stated by Lowry. And the ads are working, and our country is becoming increasingly more obese. And this is because visual media discourages the understanding of a healthy lifestyle, it substitutes for physical activity, and visual media contributes to bad dieting habits. Will you allow yourself to fall into the ranks of the 320,000 people who will die this year as a result?